Now, one of the races we've been watching closely all night is for the Michigan governor's mansion. Now, here's how the race is shaping up right now. Current Governor Rick Snyder has been declared
by
the
several
projected
sources. He has
winner
yes.
by several sources. And joining us now in the newsroom is veteran Mott Community College political science professor Paul Rozycki. Paul, thank you for being here. And you know, this has been an interesting race all the way around. It's one where you looked at the gap between Governor Rick Snyder and Mark Schauer narrowing as we got toward this election. Right. And why would we see that happening?
Well, you know, but maybe the main surprise here was that there was a race at all. Earlier in the year, everybody thought Snyder had this sewn up, and Schauer didn't look like much of a competitor. But during most of the campaign, it has been a relatively close race, and it looks like it's going to be fairly close tonight. With Snyder winning, that's no surprise. Most Michigan governors do win a second term, and most polls gave him a bit of an edge. But again, it was much more competitive than a lot of folks thought. You know,
and there were some heavy hitters that came in toward the end. We had President Obama, former President Bill Clinton, former First Lady.
Huge events.
A lot of folks here, and in the end, did it make a difference?
It doesn't seem like it. Now we got to see the final vote totals, but the idea was to really increase the turnout among Democrats, and that doesn't seem to have happened much tonight.
And you talked about that a little earlier when Bill Clinton was in town. I remember you specifically talking to Walter Smith Randolph and saying 300,000 to 400,000 more votes.
That was what they were shooting for. They were shooting for that. There were 900,000 who didn't vote the last time in the off-year election. If they could have gotten half of those, they could have turned this election around. But again, the numbers aren't totally in, but it doesn't look like it's happened tonight.
And do you think possibly, you know, Rick Snyder has an interesting way of campaigning? It's pretty hands-off.
So it really is. He's almost a reluctant campaigner. He appears not to enjoy it very much, unlike most politicians. And that nerd aspect comes across with his campaign style in many ways.
Now, when we look at, though, there were a lot of people that are willing campaigners, people that are willing to bring in quite a bit of money.
Absolutely.
You look at New York former Mayor Michael Bloomberg and his PAC giving quite a bit of money to Rick Snyder. How do you think that helped in this election?
Well, the money certainly helps. I'm not sure the Bloomberg name makes a huge difference all the way around, but the money sure helps, and Snyder had no shortage of money in this campaign, that's for sure.
All right, Paul Rozycki, thank you so much. You'll be joining us pretty soon to speak with Bill Harris, but for now, we're going to send it back to Bill.
Thanks, Sadie. We're joined back here in the newsroom by NBC 25 political analyst Paul Rozycki, who has sat by my side for how many years? We don't want to count.
Years. Too many years to count.
Keeping an eye on politics here in our state. He's joining us right now to take a look at the U.S. Senate race here in Michigan. The current ballot tallies, that is, show that Gary Peters is the winner, actually projected by NBC News as well as the Associated Press. There was no debate between these two candidates, was there?
No, there wasn't. In fact, maybe the biggest surprise was while we expected no race from the governor's race, we expected a real tough race for the U.S. Senate race. And the biggest surprise was the fact that Peters ran away with it early on and pretty well stayed ahead for the whole campaign.
There was some early speculation throughout the campaign as it started to unfold that some of the problem may lie with his opponent herself, right?
To be perfectly honest, yeah. In fact, she had the advantage. She had once run statewide twice before for Secretary of State, so her name was well known, but frankly, her campaign didn't seem ready for prime time this time around.
Any validity to the criticism that, you know, she had difficulty relating to the public, relating to the voter, relating to the media?
Very definitely. I mean, she seemed very, very uncomfortable in front of the public, in front of the media, and there were a couple of very testy confrontations with the media during her campaign, which again was surprising given her history. It's not like she hasn't run for something before.
All right, there's an icon now leaving Capitol Hill in the name of, you know, Carl Levin.
Absolutely.
What can we expect now from Gary Peters?
Well, Gary Peters is going to have to build his own record. I mean, clearly it took Carl Levin 36 years to get where he was. Gary Peters has certainly got the ability and the skill to do that, but it's going to take, he'll be building his own record as the years go by.
With just a few minutes or a few seconds left, Carl Levin made a mark in defense. Where do you think Gary Peters is going to
I think it'll be more domestic policy. That seemed like his domestic policy, urban policy will probably be his strong suit, I think.
Well, always good seeing you, sir.
Always good
Thanks
to be
for
here.
joining us. Final look at who's winning, who's losing, and how could it change the makeup of the state capitol and the nation's capital when the special edition of NBC 25 News at 11 returns.